3, 2.
Hello everyone, my name is Shubham Mathur. I'm a research staff at the University of Miami Experimental Fish Hatchery. I will be taking you on a tour today through our Japanese olive flounder system. We're going to be taking a look at a couple different life stages of this fish. The adult spawning broodstock. We will look at a couple fingerling fish, just very small juveniles, and we'll even get to see some very freshly spawned eggs and larvae. So if you'll follow me, I'll start off and we'll take a look at some adult Japanese olive flounder. So this tank here is our adult Japanese olive flounder broodstock tank. Broodstock is a term that refers to adult fish that we keep at an aquaculture facility for the purpose of spawning and producing eggs and gametes. So when we have broodstock, we collect their eggs every day, and anytime we need to do a flounder run and raise larval flounder, we can collect those eggs, hatch them, and raise them up to whatever size we need for maybe a research trial, maybe a marketing project, that kind of thing. So these fish are pretty interesting. As you can see, unlike a lot of fish that you're familiar with, olive flounder, like a lot of flounders and flatfish, including halibut, sole, plaice, etc., these olive flounder sit on the bottom. They have both of their eyes on one side of their head, and their modus operandi for eating and living is to rest on the bottom all day and wait for a piece of food or a fish or a prey item to come close, at which point they'll jump off the bottom to ambush that prey item. So that resting behavior is part of what makes olive flounder so special and so good and have so much potential for aquaculture, especially land-based recirculating aquaculture. Their energy demands are so low, unlike a fish that is swimming all day long burning calories, or a mammal that's burning a lot of calories, wasting a lot of food and energy just to stay warm and be a mammal. So these fish have very low energy demands, which is part of what makes it such a high potential, sustainable fish for aquaculture. So like I mentioned, these are our broodstock. They are spawning. So let's take a look in the egg collector to see if we have any eggs. So our egg collectors work by collecting water from the very surface of our tanks, and fertilized healthy eggs from this species are what's called a pelagic egg, meaning they float in the water column. So our egg collector skims eggs that are floating from the surface and collects these healthy fertilized eggs. You can see all of these thousands of little pearls in my net. So now that we've taken a look at the adults and the egg stage of the olive flounder, we're going to head over to Jenna, one of our graduate students, who is conducting some research on juvenile olive flounder. So over here, Jenna is feeding some of our juvenile olive flounder. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work and some of the projects that you're working on?
So, I'll get closer. Right now I'm working with NOAA, Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Council funded project, focusing on olive flounder as a potential land-based candidate species for aquaculture along the East Coast, specifically in communities that were focused more on working waterfronts and that have more of a focus on like natural wild caught flounder like populations. So a lot of these wild flounder populations have been detrimentally impacted from overfishing. So this species is such a good candidate species that it would be a viable option for these working waterfront communities to replace their wild caught stocks via aquaculture.
Great. So tell me, what are you doing here? I may ask some questions just so people.
Okay. So right now I am feeding our nursery stage olive flounder. I feed them 3 times a day, flake feed. But when they are first hatched, they're fed on a diet of rotifers and algae. And then that transfers into rotifers and artemia so they can wean onto the artemia. And then that transfers to artemia and flaked feed. And then that goes from flaked feed to larger flaked feed until they grow up to a size where they can get pelleted feed.
What got you interested in this?
So I am actually a North Carolina native. So I grew up fishing on the North Carolina coast, and I loved catching flounder. And as I got older, I noticed there were less flounder to catch. So then I worked for the Division of Marine Fisheries in North Carolina, actually, and I got to read and study the FMPs for southern flounder in the state. And I got to see firsthand how detriment to the wild stocks were becoming because of overfishing for the commercial sector. So this ties in personally for me on a personal level, because I am so interested in flounder as a general, like the whole genus, and then these flounder are such a good candidate species for aquaculture in America.
So what do you hope to do after you get your degree here?
So I would love to go into stock enhancement with flounder. So this ties in really well. It's a great opportunity for me personally to be Erasmus and have this opportunity to learn how to grow and culture flounder from larvae to subadults and juveniles.
Anything else?
Up next, I'd like to introduce Dr. John Stiglitz, the primary investigator for our Japanese olive flounder project that we're working on right now.
Thanks, Siobhan. So, as Jenna mentioned and Siobhan mentioned, this is an exciting species that we have here at the University of Miami. And we're really excited about the fact that NOAA and the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission has provided generous funding support to continue our work with this species, because we believe it's such a great candidate for development of marine fish, larval marine fish aquaculture in a land-based setting. And this species offers a number of benefits for working waterfront communities and an opportunity to provide increased resilience for these coastal communities that may be facing some of the pressures that Jenna referred to in terms of declining wild fisheries, climate change, and a number of impacts facing these coastal communities. Olive flounder aquaculture may offer a number of benefits to provide that increased resiliency, both economically as well as environmentally, for these areas. And this wouldn't be possible without the support, as I mentioned, of the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. And we thank you for joining us today in this event.
Any wrap up?
Thanks all for joining us today on this Facebook Live. I'm glad you were able to learn something about our olive flounder. Feel free to, if you have any more questions, place them in the comments below this live stream, and we'll get to them as soon as that we can. Tune in again in about a month from now, where we'll take a look at another one of our species that we're working with here at the University of Miami Experimental Hatchery. Thanks again for joining us.